people will immediately, after they'll get a raise, they immediately lose all their benefits before they even see that increased paycheck. And it really just becomes a math problem for people, right? So if I work another day and I make another $300, but I lose $3,000 in benefits, guess what? I'm not going to do that, right? I can't afford to do that. So we put some funding in place by working with our county.
This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and here on the podcast, I introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. You're joining us for a special episode in our 2026 ACCE Chamber of the Year Finalist Series. And today we're joined by Wendy Gramza, president of the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce. Wendy has served as president since July 2014, after more than a decade as the Chamber's executive vice president. Throughout her career with the Chamber, she's also led small business initiatives, including serving as Vice President of Small Business and Director of the Small Business Development Center. She's a graduate of the University of Toledo and holds both the IOM designation from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the CCE designation from ACC. Wendy brings deep chamber leadership experience, strong community involvement, and passion for supporting business growth to today's conversation. But Wendy, I'm excited to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. First of all, congratulations to you and your team for being selected as Chamber of the Year finalists. It's a great accomplishment, but I would love to give you an opportunity to say hello to all the Chamber champions who are out there listening and to share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you a little better.
Boy, interesting about myself. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And yes, it is truly an honor. And I'm very grateful that we were selected as finalists. It is not just, it may sound cliche, but there are so many thousands of great chambers across the country, and any one of them could be a finalist in any year. We just have chambers that have such strong programming. So extremely grateful to be just representing our industry this year as one of the finalists for Chamber of the Year. Something interesting about me, I think your audience, as it's chamber people, this will resonate with them. When you go into the chamber world, you never are quite sure like where that's going to take you, where you might find yourself. So I didn't realize when I started my career in the chamber that at one point I would be a regular at the Pentagon, and because of some of the work that we were doing, and that would get to be a passenger in an F-16 fighter jet.
That is pretty cool.
I'm going to leave it at that. I wasn't really a great passenger. You can probably understand what I'm talking about. So I won't go into any great detail, but that is just an opportunity that I never would have had if I weren't part of the chamber industry, and was very unexpected. If you would have told me that years ago that would happen, I would have said you're crazy. So that was one of the highlights of my career thus far.
Yeah, and that's an experience you can't pass up, no matter what the short-term side effects might be.
I tried. I turned them down for many years, and then finally our base commander said, "I'm taking you up myself." And I said, "You're going to be sorry," and he probably was, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about the Toledo Regional Chamber to give us an idea of the size of the chamber, staff, budget, scope of work you're involved with, just to kind of set the stage for our discussion today.
Sure, absolutely. So Toledo, if people don't know, is in Northwest Ohio, about 50 miles south of Detroit, but in Ohio, not in Michigan. We have just over 2,000 members. We've got an MSA that covers 3 counties. It's just over 600,000 people, so not a huge metro by a lot of standards. We've got 25 staff people and a budget around $3.6 million. That fluctuates from year to year, given grants and some other things that we might be doing in any particular year, but usually between that $3.5 and $4 million budget mark.
Sure. Now, are you guys involved with economic development or tourism or strictly chamber, or what's
So we are strictly a chamber officially, But of course, we have very, very close relationships with our economic development agency that we actually helped start about 25 years ago. So even when organizations are separate or not officially connected with the chamber, you can usually trace back to the chamber having some involvement in that organization being stood up or expanded or something of that nature. We work very closely with our Convention and Visitors Bureau, Downtown Association, and like many chambers do. So we work very closely with all of those organizations, but technically we're all separate.
Yeah, as you should, work with all those other organizations closely,
Yep.
but it's good to know your organization specifically just to help give context
Mm-hmm.
for our discussion today. So, with this being a Chamber of the Year finalist episode, I like spending most of our time in our conversation today around the programs that were submitted on your Chamber of the Year application. So we'll take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll dive into those programs and learn all about those.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of At My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started At My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
At My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped the Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Are you ready to take your organization's funding to the next level? Hi, I'm Clint Neesmith, CEO of Resource Development Group. As a Chamber of Commerce or Economic Development Organization leader, I know you understand the value of working with experts who understand your world. And that's exactly what RDG does best. For over 30 years, RDG has specialized in fundraising for EDOs and chambers. We bring cutting-edge strategies tailored to your organization, whether you're just starting out or gearing up for yet another new funding cycle. Importantly, our firm executives are hands-on from start to finish, from the feasibility study to the successful conclusion of your fundraising campaign, and our team brings deep industry roots and national expertise to every engagement. No matter the size of your community, RDG delivers data-driven, innovative revenue solutions, reinforcing ROI to investors and making sure your vision becomes reality. At RDG, we proudly build organizations that build communities. Visit us today at rdgfundraising.com and let us partner with you, building a stronger future for your organization and the community you are working to grow and develop.
Sounds good.
All right, Wendy, we're back. So as I mentioned before the break, we're going to dive into the programs that you submitted on your Chamber of the Year application. If you'd like to introduce what the first program is that you'd like to address, we can cover that and tell us about the origins and how it's evolved and what it's become, the impact it's making.
Sure, absolutely. So it's always hard to just pick two, right? But that's what they make us do. So that's
right.
what we do. So one of the ones that we picked was what we call our benefits bridge. And that is really our way, our solution, if you will, to a talent problem that became very evident to us as we worked very closely with our businesses who it's softened a little bit in the last 2 years, but even prior to COVID and then directly after COVID, really having trouble finding staff people. And then even when they found staff people, we'd hear a lot about they don't want to be promoted, they don't want overtime. And a lot of people made some wrong, came to some wrong conclusions about why that was, right? Oh, people just don't want to work, blah, 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 blah. We really started to dig in. And what we found was this benefits cliff that we were starting to hear about is real. And it's a system that we created to help people. And it now really is holding people back. And so we felt that if we created the system, we should be able to fix the system, right? And we started doing that, in our community, in our state, and then we're hoping that really is something that spreads across the country with the help of one of our U.S. senators, John Husted. So again, people will immediately, after they'll get a raise, they immediately lose all their benefits before they even see that increased paycheck. And it really just becomes a math problem for people, right? So if I work another day and I make another $300, but I lose $3,000 in benefits, guess what? I'm not going to do that, right? I can't afford to do that. So we put some funding in place by working with our county. And you can imagine when we came to our county and said, hey, we want to help people get back into the workforce by extending their benefits. They were like, wait, who are you? You can't be the Chamber of Commerce saying these to us, right? We're like, no, we are really, because it's keeping people from the workforce and that's affecting our members.
Yeah.
So they agreed to put in some money, and then the state found out about it and they agreed to put in some money without us asking. When does that ever happen? And so we have some money for a pilot program. We have about 60 people now in the program. That changes on a regular basis, so it could be higher than that. We're only a year and a half in. Over 100 have asked about the program, but only 50 qualified for it. The other 50, we were able to not just say, hey, sorry, you don't qualify for this program. We were able to connect them to other resources in the community that they did qualify for. And one of the reasons that we think we've been successful in getting people to reach out and apply is because we're working through the businesses. So the businesses, they know who those people are who don't accept promotions, who don't take overtime. So they were able to reach out to them and say, hey, this program might be for you. I think that's really the difference maker for us, is that we're working with businesses to identify who those folks are. And so we've got about 60 people that are in the program. And what we do is smooth out or create that bridge. So provide some funding to them so they can take that promotion, they can work that overtime. And there's a pathway to reducing their benefits that comes with some coaching so they can see their way out of it. Like, what does that look like at the end of this time period? I'll be bringing in enough money that I won't need those benefits, right? So they understand and they have somebody that coaches them and helps them figure that out, right?
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. Aside from the money aspect of it, there's a comfort zone that comes, right? When you're in a place of employment and you've got your benefits, you get used to the pay. What else can you do to help them create a vision of a greater future? And I think that goes to what you're talking about now with connecting them with some coaching and whatnot. But talk to us a little bit more about that, about helping them create that vision of a better future for themselves.
Well, and we have great resources in our community. So it was just about pulling in those resources that we'd already been working very closely with some other programs that we were doing, our industry sector partnership, which that could have been one of our programs, but we had to pick two. But we had already built a relationship with all of those social service agencies. And so it was really easy to pull them in and say, hey, you help people with financial literacy. We want you to be part of this program. And you help people with homelessness, and we want you to, to be part of this program. So we have a whole cadre of services that we make available to those individuals. And again, like any good chamber program, right? Like, you can't create everything on our own. We can't also all of a sudden become experts at that. We pulled in the experts in our community who already have been doing that, around our community. So that's really, again, the strength of it, is not trying to do everything on your own, but trying to pull those resources in. So people might say, oh, well, you didn't bring anything new to the table. We did, because if people don't know about resources, or if they don't feel comfortable reaching out, they might as well not exist for that person.
Right. Yeah.
So
exactly.
We feel good about putting that in front of them and making them feel like, yes, this is for me. I can make this call and I'm going to get this assistance.
Yeah. So with a program like this, you had mentioned that about half of the applicants didn't qualify for the program. What kind of qualifications are there? What kind of things do they need to be able to, I assume it has to do with certain type of employment or maybe certain industries or things like that. What are the qualifications for somebody to get into this program?
It mainly had to do with, what their salary was, what their household income was. it's really financially based, because some people might have thought, and again, they didn't even have the benefits that we were talking about. So it just, again, people that just kind of weren't really a match for the program.
Yeah.
So I don't have the specifics.
Sure.
But
Sure.
yeah, there's a formula kind of based on their income, their household income, some of those sorts of things that they may not have qualified for, because maybe they weren't going to lose more in benefits that they were earning. They might have lost some benefits, but right. So it was really around like people who had, childcare, which is a really, really costly if you lose that benefit. So, for people who maybe didn't have that, the numbers didn't really pencil out that they would really benefit from the program. But like I said, we were able to help them get other resources to help themselves.
Yeah. So you said there's about 60 people in the program right now.
At least 60.
What does the length of the program look like? So aside from the financial aspect of it, you're providing the coaching and this mentorship. Is it over a period of several months, a year? What's the length of the program
Yeah,
look like?
so of course, everything when, we want to make sure that the funding's sustainable. So pilot programs are a little bit difficult. So it's a 2-year program. So we've got like 2 years to get people through that before we can, after that, if the program's not renewed or it's not made statewide, then, we might not be able to. So we want to get those people in early and give them that 2-year cycle. For some, again, based on their situation, it might be a shorter time frame where they won't need that assistance.
Okay.
So,
Is this being funded
it's steeper
through
for some people than for others?
Yeah. Is this being funded through a foundation or through the chamber directly?
Actually, it's being funded through our county and our state. So the chamber, other than our expertise in marketing the program,
putting everything together.
That funding's coming from public sources.
Perfect. Very good. Anything else that we need to know about the benefits bridge before we move on to the next?
I don't think so, other than, again, it's getting statewide and it's getting some national attention. So our U.S. Senator is looking at providing some federal funding for the program and piloting in a couple of states, which we, of course, would assume that Ohio will be one of them, since that's the state that he covers, and that we've shown some good progress with the program.
Well,
so we've got that recipe.
I see this being a program that can change lives when it gets them, over that hurdle of that fear of getting out of the comfort zone and opening up a new world of possibilities for these employees.
Absolutely.
So,
and it's generational too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what really is important to us.
Yeah. Well, let's shift into your other program, which I know is around talent and workforce as well. You guys are focused on talent and workforce, which is awesome, as any chamber should be. But tell us what your other program is all about.
Yeah. So again, just stemming from, asking any business member from 16 forward. And I think we were hearing it a lot more than some of our traditional economic development agencies that, they brought in a big company and they would be able to find the workers that they needed because they might have, be at a different pay scale. Since we represent a lot of small and medium, specifically manufacturers, we were hearing very early on from them, hey, we understand how the system works, right? We bring somebody in with no skills. We teach them the skills. We pay them what we can. And then once they gain those skills, they'll leave us and go to a bigger company, and we'll go back and grab somebody that doesn't, have skills, and so on and so forth.
Start over again. Yeah.
We start over again. We know we can't compete with the bigger companies, and we feel, that we feel good about that, right? We've taken somebody that didn't have any skills, gave them some skills, and now they're able to work for, a GM or, a larger First Solar, a larger company. Well, they started seeing early on in, 25, 15 and 16, there's nobody at the other end of that pipeline for us to train. So that's why we really started thinking about this tight labor pool, tight labor market, how we could help, train people, what was holding people back, where were the positions, because we heard anecdotally, you can't find a welder to save your life. And then we'd hear, you can't find a nurse to save your life. Okay, well, those things are probably all true.
I hope you can find a nurse to save your life.
Well, yeah, sorry,
right?
Unintended, I guess. But so we really started to look at, okay, do we not have enough nurses? We can't just take this anecdotally. So we put together a program where we use some other organizations, CALE, which is the Center for Adult and Experiential Learning, and I can't remember the name of the other organization, forgive me, and said, we really need to know what's going on in our labor market because it's different here. It's different everywhere, right?
Yeah.
We're still a lot of blue collar workers. So, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of skilled and unskilled. So a little bit different here. So what's really going on? So we use data, a whole lot of data. We involved a whole lot of partners, a lot of our members to figure out what's the current state of our labor market. I mean, we actually just redid that post-COVID because the initial study was pre-COVID and then everything got worse and then got better. So we just recently sort of updated those numbers, but that study turned into a strategy. And I think that was the real difference. It wasn't just like, hey guys, here's the information. It was like, okay, first of all, let's gut check this, went back to our members and said, here's what the data says. Is this what you're seeing? And we could have good discussions about why or why not. That's when we really leaned into some non-traditional sources of finding employees, leaned in heavy to veterans, leaned in heavy to returning citizens. And we have a whole program about that we could have talked about. But all of those things were born out of this talent alignment strategy. And it wasn't a strategy just for the chamber. We created a macro coalition where we pulled in all of our partners and said, okay, here's the data. Let's sit down together and figure this out. Nursing was a good situation where we looked at, or a good example of a situation where we looked at how many nurses we were graduating in our programs, and it was more than what our need was. So supply was outpacing demand, yet we knew that's not what was happening. So what is happening? Well, the nurses are getting trained, but they're leaving. They're going to be a traveling nurse or they're going somewhere else. So then you can dig in, and that's when then we pull in our industry sector partnership that we have in healthcare and say, all right, guys, we may or may not have a salary issue here, right? Because we're graduating more than we need. And so that's just kind of a glimpse into these really deep, specific conversations that we would have with our industries about, help us help you, right? Like we really need to dig in and find out the why. And if we fix that why, we fix it for everybody. Everybody's okay with competing, but nobody wins when there's nobody to compete for. And that's really been our strategy and our mantra about let's create a talent pipeline and then people can compete. But everybody loses if there's nobody in the pipeline.
Yeah. So I like how you take the data and then it's like, okay, what do we do with this now, right? You create the strategy and it's leading to these discussions. Like you mentioned the example with nursing where, maybe there's a salary discrepancy here. What comes out of those discussions on the back end? Says you have the data, you're implementing a plan, you're having the tough conversations with the different industry sectors. I imagine that even though there's data and evidence, that there's probably still going to be some pushback. There's going to be some.
And the salary one, right, that's a great one to point out because it was very easy to see what the problem might be. A little harder to get everybody on board to necessarily fix that, right? What's the fix?
Yeah.
But at least now they know what the issue might be. They know that we're not going to go out and train more nurses like we might have done had we not looked at the data and really been honest with, no, we don't need to train more nurses. We need to keep them.
Yeah.
And so then, a lot around, talent attraction and retention, a lot about talking to people about our quality of life and cost of living, because, a dollar earned here is different than a dollar earned, in Chicago. So how do we really start to tell that story? So that was something that the community could do. And when it comes to the manufacturers, we realized too that a lot of people were thinking that manufacturing it's dirty and it's dangerous, and it's not. So that turned into a campaign of promoting manufacturing as a career in the school systems, both to the students, the guidance counselors, the teachers, and the parents. And so we've a whole bunch of programs and things have been created to get people more interested in going into manufacturing.
Yeah.
We created some of them were created by our partners.
Yeah, I would love to know the level of psychology. I'm sure there's a study that's been done somewhere to look at, graduating high school students or graduating college students that feel like they need to leave the community that they grew up in to find a career because the grass is always greener somewhere else when there's a lot of opportunity where you're from.
Right. And you're always dealing with that, right? Like every
Yep.
community deals with that. It's just like a trade imbalance, right? You know you're going to lose people because they want to go and see other places. So you also have to have an importing strategy as well. And so that's led to a lot of work that the chamber's been doing in attracting and retaining talent. And that's a whole nother conversation that we could have.
Right.
But that's how
Absolutely.
it all fits together. And I'll tell you, we're looking right now at the labor market is softening. How much and for how long? And what does that mean for our programming? Is it still relevant? Do we need to change things up? Do we need to add, different things? We were just talking to somebody, and this was actually in another state. They applied for a job and were told there were 12,000 other applicants. So just that quickly, I think we've seen that labor market soft in certain areas. We're
Yeah.
still not seeing that a whole lot here when it comes to manufacturing. There's still a shortage, but it has softened. You can find a welder, right? It might take you a couple of months, but they're out there. So
Yeah.
we just need to make sure that we're reacting to the needs of our business community. Is this a blip? Will it go back? We're really trying to get our arms around what the future looks like. So we make sure that we're poised to meet the next challenge that businesses are having. It's
Right.
not always going to be labor.
And to your point with the market softening, the labor market softening, I wonder how much of that is the influx of AI, and you get a lot of slop online. And when that many people can just throw out resumes or apply or have bots do it for them or whatever, you get a lot of slop out there. So
Right,
filtering through all that and figuring out the best way to process everything to find
right,
those good
right.
candidates
The
is
other
going to be
thing
a
we
whole nother
found out
skill set.
too that was kind of interesting in the healthcare field, that as things softened a little bit, they would still keep the job openings posted, and we'd call and be like, okay, and well, no, those jobs really aren't available. Well, then why are they so? We're like, this is the
Yes.
data that we rely on to tell us what the labor market's doing, and you're skewing it by posting positions you're not really hiring for. So that's been some interesting conversations with some of our members as well.
Yeah. And, my wife just went through this about 8 months ago, and that very thing. She applied for a position and, no, sorry, it's already been taken. Well, why is it still up
Why
here?
is it still posted?
But
Yep,
yeah, so that's
exactly.
frustrating.
Yep,
But I'll
yep.
tell you what was super helpful was those who did job postings and said, we're taking applications up until this date. And then we're going to assess and make our decision by this date, of who we're going to interview and move forward with. And that helped give a lot of clarity to job applicants to be able to figure out where they want to apply and where they want to put their attention. So as we start to wrap things up, Wendy, I wanted to ask you on behalf of those listening who are interested in taking their organization up to the next level, what kind of tip or action item would you leave for them as they strive towards that goal?
I think one thing that our industry has done so well, I have to give a shout out to ACCE, because any chamber that's not a member of ACCE, make the investment, do it. It is, if you're a smaller chamber, you don't pay as much as the larger chambers do. So, and they work really hard to make sure that things are relevant to chambers at all sizes. So that would be the first thing that you need to do, because you get so much out of that. And then really, if you are a member and you're not paying close attention to that Horizons initiative, that was so compelling when it came out the first time, and now they've done a second generation of it, if you will, that should really spark your thinking. You're going to go, yes, I agree, I'm seeing this. And it gives you some practical things to think about. It's not going to give you the answer, because the answer is different if you're in Miami versus Toledo or Tulsa or wherever. But, lean into the association, lean into other chambers who are willing to help, and lean into that Horizons, because it's really going to help you frame really, what it is that chambers should be doing. And, get a lot of sleep and drink a lot of liquids, because what we're doing it's not easy. It's not tangible. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine, and she's like, I don't mean to appear stupid, but I don't really understand what you do. And a lot of people don't, right? And we know
Yeah.
all of the reasons why that is, because we don't sell pencils, right? Or the pen, I guess, here, buy this, here's how much it costs, here's what it'll do. That's not what we're selling. We're selling solutions, right? And we're selling success, and that's harder for people to grasp. So it's not an easy endeavor, but it's one that's needed in every community. So keep the
Yeah.
faith.
Absolutely. Well, I like asking everyone I have on the show about the future of chambers. I know you just mentioned the Horizons Initiative as well, but as we look to the future of chambers, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
It's always changing. And boy, if I had the answer to that, I wouldn't have to work anymore. But it is a little bit of reading the tea leaves. And so you have to look at those things that are signals of what's happening. And even if you can't recognize it before it happens, you've got to be ready to pivot. And I think that's what chambers are really good at. And I think that's what's going to keep us relevant. We're a machine with a recipe, with hopefully, in our case, we've got some money in the bank. So we're not, when something happens in our community, we're not like, oh gosh, we're sustainable. We're going to be here in 5 or 10 years. And I think the most important thing is really getting your community to recognize that and to lean into that and to be ready to partner with unusual partners. We've partnered with, the health department. Even before COVID, we were partnering with the health department when we had some water issues in our community, partnering with, our county commissioners that a lot of times, we didn't see eye to eye with. Just thinking about those sort of unholy alliances that are really going to be important if chambers are going to stay relevant.
Yeah.
And they can work. You can agree to, we still disagree with our county commissioners, when they want to spend money or they want to increase taxes, but we agree with them on the benefits cliff and that we're working together to fix it. So we agree on that and we disagree on the things we disagree on. So I think to be successful, you can't lose sight and just completely say, oh, now I'm working with this group, so I'm going to say yes to everything they do. No, you've still got to be able to pull back and go, no, you know what? That might be in the best interest of business, but this is not.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important if we're going to be relevant that we, just to summarize, we are willing to entertain partnerships with groups that normally, historically, we would not, but that we still understand that sometimes we've got to stay true to representing businesses because it's really easy to let a lot of these social issues pull us off task.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point that you made. So first of all, being a problem solver, but also not letting those I'll say minor disagreements create a barrier to being able to find agreement and synergies in the future. So that's a great example. Well, Wendy, I wanted to give you a chance to share any contact information for listeners who may want to reach out and learn more about how you guys are doing things there in Toledo or about these programs you discussed today. Where would you point them and what would be the best way for them to reach out and connect?
Well, like I said, ACCE is a great way to connect. The conferences, and I swear they're not paying me for this, or you, right? The conference is coming up. That's in New Orleans. Who doesn't want to be in New Orleans in July, right? It's going to be, balmy. My husband's going and still claims he's going to golf while I'm in the session. So I think he's crazy, but
good for him.
How that works out. Again, I'll be at the conference in a couple of weeks. And then you can certainly reach me by email. It's Wendy with the Y, .Gramza@ToledoChamber.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Very good. We'll get that in our show notes for this episode and make it easy to connect. But thank you for spending time with us today and highlighting these programs that are making a great impact there in the Toledo region. And I wish you and your team best of luck as Chamber of the Year.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
If you are a chamber professional, be sure to subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast on your favorite podcast app or now on YouTube, so you never miss a new episode. New episodes are released each week and delivered right to you. If you're finding value in the podcast, please take a moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. It really helps others discover the show. And most importantly, share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues in the industry so we can continue to grow and strengthen the chamber community together.
One thing I see over and over with chambers is a big focus on talent attraction and workforce development. But what often gets overlooked is retention. That's where Mike Conn really brings something different to the table.
When you invest in people, you know what happens? Their leadership increases exponentially. And when you help leadership increase exponentially on an individual level, an organizational level, a community level, then the culture just gets better and better and better.
Mike gives businesses practical tools to build stronger culture, improve communication, and actually keep the great people they've worked so hard to attract. If you're looking for a way to bring real tangible value to your members through workforce and talent retention and even earn some non-dues revenue in the process, then what Mike has to offer is a game changer. To learn more, visit chamberchatpodcast.com/Mike Conn to learn more about all that Mike has to offer.